Okay, as you know, you have 15 minutes for your presentation. After your presentation, your guests will have to leave the room and you'll be asked questions by the commission.
Okay.
You may start.
Good afternoon, professors. My research studies regarding peer tutoring strategy and its effect on adult Chilean EFL students' writing proficiency levels. Well, the variables presented in this study emerged from different observations of a group composed by 17 adult Chilean EFL students while they were taking the course Basic English 1 at Universidad Santo Tomás. During this observation, students presented a certain kind of behavior regarding differences among students' writing skills, as well as they changed the interactional pattern of task, completing the individual task in a joint manner. This phenomenon doesn't fit with the theoretical perspective gives regarding the writing proficiency. According to the Ministry of Education, students are expected to achieve their English level at level A2, a fact that is not presented in this situation. Okay, the elements of my study were the following. The main question: what is the possible effect of the application of peer tutoring strategy on adult EFL Chilean students' writing proficiency levels? The general objective to determine the possible effects that peer tutoring may have on adult EFL Chilean learners' levels of writing proficiency as exhibited in certain types of written tasks. My specific objective were to identify and compare these adult EFL Chilean learners' initial levels of writing proficiency in a set of written tasks before and after applying the strategy of peer tutoring, and then to assess these learners' pieces of writing as a result of employing the aforementioned strategy. The assumption was based on the notion that Chilean management provides regarding peer tutoring. According to this author, peer tutoring can be considered as an exchange of meaning during the interaction of the tutor and the tutee. Hence, the assumption of this study was that a student can improve their skills through this exchange. Also, this study was expected to contribute to the field of education by suggesting suitable strategies for approaching adult EFL classroom in which students have different characteristics. The theoretical framework presents different concepts of the field of education. The first one, cooperative learning, according to these authors, can be defined as the instructional use of small groups in which students can work together in order to maximize each other's learning. Peer tutoring, that is a strategy of cooperative learning, can be defined as the method in which students, based on the creation of a group of students in which they have an asymmetrical relationship and a goal in common that must be achieved through the interaction. Also, this case suggests that peer tutoring is the method in which students are taught by their peers that are monitored by the teacher. Writing, on the other hand, is the use of language in a written form for communicative purposes. Brown also suggests that writing is the graphic representation of spoken language with rhetorical conventions. Proficiency is the aptitude of using language and developing skills for communicating effectively. The Ministry of Education suggests that this strategy can be developed through different communicative instances. Following this notion, proficiency can be divided into 6 categories. Those are the proficiency levels. The proficiency levels are A1 and A2 considered as basic users, B1 and B2 considered as independent users, and C1 and C2 considered as proficient users. This study can be considered as a mixed study due to its different characteristics regarding purpose and structure. On the one hand, this study comprises a qualitative aspect by its consideration of the context as a unique system of beliefs that is not possible to generalize. On the other hand, this study also comprises quantitative aspect due to the use of data collection techniques that are quantitative. Also, this study addresses a social critical paradigm. According to Martinez, this kind of paradigm is related to the educational practice and it complements elements or instruments that are positivistic and empirical in order to improve elements inside the classroom. In this case, this study takes into consideration the use of the cat in order to improve the students' writing proficiency levels. Also, the study addresses 2 methodological designs. The first, transformative, read and repeated measures design. Transformative design, according to Griswold, is a quantitative data collection techniques, but the analysis is qualitative. In this case, this study takes into consideration the use of the ket, but the analysis of it is based on interpretations. Also, this design is used for addressing underrepresented samples in order to transform the reality. In the case of repeated measure designs, this design is characterized by applying the treatment in a repetitive manner. So, in this case, is that exactly what I did with the peer tutoring. So, in this case, I repeated the application in order to elicit the information from the subjects in different points of time during the study. The subjects who participated in the study corresponds to six adult EFL Chilean students aged between 18 and 21 years old. This study corresponds to the study programs of nursing and medical technology inside the university, and these subjects were selected according to the availability of the researcher for carrying out the study, as well as the availability of the university. The procedure was based on the application of a pretest and forewriting workshops in which the strategy of peer tutoring was applied. The data collection techniques, I used a pretest and a forewriting workshops were applied in peer tutoring. In the case of the pretest, this test was based on the section 8 of writing section, in which students were asked to create pieces of writing in order to reply an email or a letter. This test was applied for identifying the baseline of students' writing proficiency. Once the baseline was identified, forewriting workshops were designed and applied, applying the peer tutoring strategy. In this case, this strategy was applied between lessons. This means that in one lesson, students were asked to work in pairs, and the next lesson were asked to work on their own. The data analysis technique corresponds to an assessment rubric that is the same use in the ket. Sorry, I had a mistake here. Same as the use of the ket. In this case, this assessment has 4 indicators that were spelling, grammar, communicative purpose, and use of format. Once the writing workshop were applied, the pieces of writing were collected and assessed by this rubric, and the score obtained by this rubric were registered and compared, and used by interpretations. There are many considerations of trustworthiness in terms of these instruments. The first was regarding construct and content validity. Due to these instruments represent a measurable concept and also is reviewed in literature. The reliability, on the other hand, means that these instruments ensure what is intended to measure by repeated applications. In this case, no matter what time or when did you apply this kind of instruments, you obtain the same result that were the pieces of writing of students. And also the objectivity was ensured because the ket is considered as an standardized test. Well, this is the assessment rubric that I used. Here we have 4 points from 0 to 5, and those are the criteria. The criteria was selected, and the mark was selected according to the criteria attempted in these pieces of writing. For example, here the mark 5 represents that all the 3 parts of the lessons were clearly communicated, and there were no minor spelling errors or occasional grammatical errors. In this case, I have the bar chart that represents the number of students who obtained 5 points, that is the maximum score of the rubric, during the whole process of the study. At the beginning, only 1 student obtained the maximum score in the pretest, and finally, in the final workshop, as you can see here, the workshop is individual, groupal, and it was like put in between lessons. So at the end of the workshop 4, only 4 students obtained the maximum score. That is a big increase, as you can see here. The data analysis presented different features regarding the data. For example, in the first case, there was a differences among students spelling grammar and use of the format. So in this case, at the beginning of the study, those students. This difference can be explained due to the lack of practice of writing tasks. Since the subjects were expected or were taking the course of English, Basic English 1, they were not expected to produce writing yet, but only to facing grammatical activities. Also, students were not able to produce any difference regarding the levels of proficiency, but they were capable of providing information regarding a development of micro skills. This means that the students did not present changes of the level of proficiency, but they can improve their skills through the application of the workshops. So that I consider that was the effect found in this study. However, the limitation of these studies is regarding the first one and other elements that may influence on the result. There were other elements that might have been influenced on the results. For example, the natural process of learning, maybe the time given for applying or for doing the activity, the writing activity, or maybe working on the same sequence of tasks. Also, there was a limitation about time constraints. I have some problems regarding time constraints because of the time limits. I wasn't able to design and apply more writing workshops. So maybe my 4 writing workshops might have not been enough for finding an effect. Also, I had some problems for accessing to the subjects due to many cancellation of the class during the process. So I had to solve this problem by meeting the subjects outside the classroom. Well, my suggestion for further research was regarding to maybe I can suggest a research study with the same variables but with a longer period of time. Maybe a longitudinal case, or maybe a longitudinal type of study. Okay, this is the second part of my presentation regarding the metacognitive analysis regarding the research study. I realized that I have some strength regarding identifying some possible questions, some possible problems to solve by research study. So I think that I have this strength here. So according to Hernandez, it says that no matter what idea that you have, no matter what kind you have, this is a first approach for facing a possible research study. Also, I realized that I have a weakness regarding creating the method section because I have a wonderful mind on my mind, but I don't know how to do it, how to concrete it on the paper. So it was difficult at the beginning for me to leave it and to make concrete my idea. According to McKay and Gass, this is that this particular section of the research study must be detailed as possible. So it was difficult for me at the beginning to give details about the method. So for my challenges, I think that I have to work on that, trying to be detailed as possible for my procedure, and also I have to take advantage of this strengths regarding the recognition of ideas. In the case of the internships, I realized that I have the strength of an ease for facing students who have a formal thought. According to Papalia, these students that were adults, that they are finishing the stage of teenager, they have a formal thought that allows them to think about abstract things. So it was easy for me to create maybe activities regarding discussions and giving opinions regarding these elements that were abstract. Also, I realized that I have the weakness for considering the characteristics of students at the time for doing the lessons plan. I realized that for me it was difficult for making lessons plan for a course that was basic, because I didn't consider the level of English. So according to Harvard, the level of proficiency of the students is an important point for making the lesson plan, so I have to consider for the next time. So those are my challenges. I have to take advantage of this thing regarding the formal thought, but I have to take into consideration elements of the characteristic of the classroom at the time of doing the lesson plan. That is my presentation. Those